everyone to our webinar, which is how to give distinctive customer service when every major trend goes into the blender. I think we've got an absolute cracking webinar lined up for you today. We've got a great panel of experts. Delighted to be joined by regular Martin Hill-Wilson from Brainfood Consulting, who was voted very high in our last two polls of the most influential people in the UK. You came first 4 years ago.
I know.
Last year was only fourth. So
I'll live with it.
Bit more
I'm working on my self-esteem.
And also delighted to be joined by Tim Pickard from NewVoiceMedia. Tim's participated in a couple of webinars. I think the last one was back in February. So, but has been speaking a lot of time and has already spoken this morning. We're going to be doing top tips from the audience, and as ever, interactive questions and answers. We'll be taking question and answers. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to see what the mood is like in your contact centres today. So if you'd like to go either into the chat room or type, if you're not quite logged in yet, go to the questions box, and just like to see what the mood is like in your contact centre. So if you'd like to just type that into the question box now. So just wait for them. Just wait for some of those answers to come through. Kirsty says it's motivated. It's hectic, says Justine. Hannah says it's buzzing. Trina says ambivalent. Jay says it's calm. Marisol says it's harassed. Oh dear. Anne says it's driven. Sully says it's motivated. Frank says it's effective. Andrew is steady. Happy, says Nigel. Static, says Hugh. Productive, very good, says Natasha. And Sue has said productive and motivated. I think that's 2 words. We'll let you off. On the coming into the chat room, Richard has said it's sunny and optimistic. Suzanne has said it's empowered. And if you're Suzanne, I'd be quite interested to hear some of the things that you're doing to empower your centre. So if you'd like to put that in. Johnny says it is turbulent. So quite a different range of emotions. So I'm now going to pass the baton across to Martin Hill-Wilson, and from Brainfood Consulting, and Martin will be taking us through his presentation of how to give distinctive customer service. So we'll just get Martin's slides up on the screen now. And, coming through?
Yeah.
Quite yet?
On my side.
Show my screen. There it is.
I have indeed. You got it?
Full screen mode. There.
Excellent. Okay. So this is a bit of fun really that we thought we would do because we're getting towards the end of the year. We've covered loads this year actually. We've talked about social, we've talked about mobile, we've got into digital. Personalisation being a big thing. I mean, I just found literally week by week something new has come forward. It's a very, very exciting time. So we thought we would just indulge in a little bit of crystal ball gazing really and say, so if you put everything into a pot and mixed all that stuff up, what would you see in terms of looking forward outwards? So by the way, this is really participative. We're just going to give an angle for the fun of it, but there are loads and loads of polls and opportunities to contribute. So please don't just sit there thinking that somebody's going to tell you the answer. It's a joint exploration here. But anyway, on that spirit, this is what we're going to do. I told you we were going to work hard. This is the first thing to start with. So poll number 1 is looking back before we look forward, just to get a sense of the movement of things. What do you think has actually changed most or made the biggest impact in this last 7 years?
So the answers are new technology, social media or new channels, call volumes, customer expectations, or staffing. You're only allowed 1 vote here, so you have to select what you think has changed most to your customer service over the last 7 years. New technology, social media, new channels, call volumes, customer expectations, or staffing. Tim, any guesses on?
Well, we're not allowed to vote, but I am going to cast my vote for new technology.
New technology. Martin, any?
I'm going to customer expectation.
Okay, well let's have a look at the results up on the screen. And
both wrong.
This is surprising.
Really?
Social media has probably most changed.
All new channels.
I guess it's really that in the past you could probably hide some of the problems that were happening in your company, but now it's all being broadcast all across the internet. Well, I think it's also that directly is driving customer expectations.
Yeah, I think that's true. But it's also said new channels there. So I would suspect web chat is possibly also in people's minds as well on that one.
Yeah, I would think so. Actually, interestingly, social media is one of the things that scares CEOs and business leaders most around customer service because of the public nature of the of what's happening.
Yeah, without a doubt. Okay, so let's just slice off some trends as far as the customer is concerned. The speed at which we are using mobile as a form of interaction we're going to come on to later, but the key thing that has resulted from this is a certain mindset change, and that's really captured at the bottom of that quote from James Roper, which is to say there's a whole new mindset in which everything is always immediately available, 24/7. I tweeted something yesterday, which again loads of people retweeted, which is that I think most of us are no more than 90 seconds away from our mobile at any one point in the day, and it's literally
that much.
What's the first thing you do in the morning? You don't reach out for a fag any longer, which is a really grotty habit. You reach out for your mobile, which is actually an equally grotty habit. So the fact is that it's always available to us, and that's what...
Well, and the other thing is that it provides near-perfect information about the market.
Yeah.
So, instantly available, near-perfect information. I mean, that is incredible change in terms of what we have as consumers or business buyers.
So from the brand perspective, we're certainly dealing more and more with people interacting with us over either smartphone and or tablet. The other thing that comes with that is the omni-channel thing that's been growing. We've talked quite a lot about it over the course of this year. And one of the interesting things about omni-channel is that you really have got any combination going on there. And so one of the things that is increasingly popular, in fact, is going into the local shopping centre, having the fun and the experience of walking around, being social, literally, going to a shop. And I saw a stat last week. 40% of us in this country actually do showrooming. In other words, we will then check out online whether or not there's a cheap price. The States was only 27%. We are the worst on the planet at doing that, right? So absolutely dreadful. And what you're seeing is the expectation of trying to grab that customer's business any which way. So shuttle is another interesting phenomena here, which is that we want it immediately. So it's perfectly possible to have gone into town, ordered it online, and then it's delivered to you before you even get back from the shopping centre. They've bragged there that they've managed to do it just under 15 minutes. So that's the trend now. Everything is veering towards total convenience, total real time. The other thing, of course, is that it enables engagement with customers in fundamentally new ways. And this is just a favourite story that I spotted a while back, and I'm just enjoying telling, and you probably haven't heard it yet. There is a fantastic shoe shop in Guatemala called Meat Pack, which itself is quite fun. And it's a combination of leveraging Wi-Fi, location tracking, and real-time couponing. And what they've done is invited their customers to have downloaded a mobile app. And what they've done is to recognize whenever that customer has decided to go into one of the own brand stores to buy some of the shoes that they could be selling in Meatpack, a Puma, a Nike, a Supra, whatever you want, Reebok. And what they do is instantly, and this isn't done by human control, this is just literally an automated message, it messages that person saying, maybe you don't want to buy it there because we've got something to incentivize you to come to our shop. And the incentive is very simple. There is 100% off the price if you can get there. However, you lose a percentage every second that it takes you to get there. The net result is you've got all these people rushing around the place trying to get to Meatpack in time, and tremendous in terms of the excitement that's generated. Obviously this is for a certain generation, otherwise, it just wouldn't work. But anyway, they managed to displace 600 customers out of that, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting phenomenon, and I think it's price differentiation down to the individual level. So it's marketing, it's giving that offers at an individual and making it scalable, which is, I mean, a couple of other examples that we found. Walmart at the point of checkout, based on your previous buying behavior, will give discounts.
Yeah.
Again, promotions down to the point of the individual.
Yes.
And also biometric clothing,
Wow, what's
which
that?
is an interesting one. I think Levi's, I think others are now doing effectively biometric clothing. So you have a biometric scan, and then you can buy jeans that actually fit.
Oh, completely, yes.
So they're tailored
Right.
to the individual. They're not, 32, 31, blah, blah.
yeah.
They are, bespoke jeans for you, tailored for you, sent to you at the same price.
Fantastic.
So, individualization down to the...
Personalised manufacturing, in fact.
Personalised manufacturing.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so very quick snapshot of some of the key things with customers. We're going to come back to it, but it just gets us up and running.
And we've had some comment back from the
Okay,
audience.
let's hear that.
So we've had, Johnny says, social media complaints jump the queue.
Yeah.
Teresa said, social media has really made everything much more public.
Yeah.
Amanda has said, social media has given customers a soapbox to share their opinions or experience of your company, good, bad, or whatever. So.
Yeah. I mean,
this is what is making the whole kind of customer experience across channels such a key issue for today's businesses, because we know that the internet provides near perfect information. We kind of mentioned that earlier on, but that's near perfect information that you want to get out there, and that other people are talking about you, and that is very influential. So peer-to-peer and other social networks, very influential in terms of what people think of your brand.
well, Ben Kay, who is the digital lead over at EE, which is a big mobile provider here in the UK, said he's put together the listening platform, physical room, somewhere you can relate to. His managing director, the CEO, Olaf, comes down every Friday and checks out and says, what's my agenda for next week as a result of that? Now,
Wow.
you tell me, over the last 25, 30 years of being in the call centre, where a CEO has ever been that damned interested in customer service.
Yeah.
In other words, to the points that have just been made, social makes consequences of customer service in a way that's never true before.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Oh, next poll. Right, so looking out, this is your chance to be a guru here. So what do you reckon is going to be the major trend that's going to take place in the next 7 years? Chance to vote.
So you can vote for a maximum of 3 of these. So what will most influence your customer service over the next 7 years? Mobility, social media, digital, big data, which has been in the news a lot, or cloud. So if you'd just like to vote maximum of 3 on there. Any predictions, Martin, where you think it's going to...
Well, I think it's going to be between mobility and social media. I'm
going big data, cloud, and social media. I think.
Okay.
Because of the customer intimacy and what we can gain from big data and the personalisation aspect of that. I think that's going to be huge.
Well, let's have a look at the at the results. Ooh, big data.
It's not. I got it.
Yo. Thank you, audience.
Social media mobility coming up very high. Helena said mobility will be crucial in the future. Teresa says social media definitely a main influence, as everything will be channeled through digital devices that can be shared.
But Edwards did go with cloud is my best answer.
So,
Well done, Edward. Yeah.
So quite a range of different ones there. So we'll just pass back to Martin.
Yes, great. Okay, so there we go. Where have we got to? So we've just done the customer one. Whiz through there. Let's get on to mobility. So let's look at some of the detail on this. Here we go. This is one of my favourite slides, and it's actually from an ongoing piece of research, global research on the behaviour of youth, as they say. And what's fantastic is it's an extreme point of view, but in that particular space, if you had to make a choice with your last $10, what would you prefer to spend your money on, the food or the phone? And what I think we're witnessing here is a reinvention of Maslow's hierarchy, where actually smartphone is more essential than food and shelter. Okay.
Where does self-actualization come in there?
It's a long distance.
Or is it digital actualization?
It is. It's an aspiration that's actually died. I'm sad to say. So anyway,
Richard has said on his own statistic on that one, 71% of youths are crazy.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, well, they spent their last $10.
And 29% are hungry.
Are it doesn't say is that they spend their last $10 on their mobile phone, and they get fed by their parents.
Exactly. That's the real truth. That's the real truth. So that's extreme, and this is sort of us, really.
And Jeff says, does beer count as food?
Certainly does in most cultures, Jeff, yes. The other point to realise, of course, is that actually it hasn't consolidated on single devices. I think we're all going to live in a generation where we've got more than one device to carry around with us. And in today's world, it's either using the smartphone or using the tablet, or indeed using the laptop. And it is interesting, actually, that they probably suit different environments. And whilst we talk a lot about doing mobile on the move, the reality is, at this point in time, the majority of mobile behaviour is done in a safe Wi-Fi enabled space. Yeah. That is either your work or it is your home. Certainly, I mean, in London, I don't know if we here now have got Wi-Fi on the underground. That's still noteworthy to me. I'm still delighted at the fact that I'm God knows how many hundred feet down there, and actually I can get a better signal down there than I can do often elsewhere. So that's just a fantastic thing. So it's enabling us to actually move around in that kind of a way, but we screen hop. And that actually makes things even more complicated, because we're talking about multi-channel or cross-channel, omni-channel, whatever you want to call it, and the customer is moving across these particular mobile devices as well, which really does make it tough. So let's see whether or not we are actually doing that, as according to the research says that they are doing it. From your perspective, are you actually buying via a mobile device? And the first question I think we've got there is, at home is the key question there.
So who has bought something at home using either a smartphone or a tablet? So if you just like to select any that apply, purchase using a smartphone at home, purchase using a tablet at home, or you've not used a mobile device for a purchase. Just like to vote on there. You can vote for more than one if you like. So
just as a few stats out there whilst we're talking. So in the States, they're about 60% now of smartphone. We're about 55 in the UK. We're 1 in 3 now in the UK on tablet. Interesting, I saw that stat this week.
Right.
So it's growing at a phenomenal rate.
So there you go.
There you go, actually. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting?
Not used mobile device.
So I'm surprised that tablet's actually the same as smartphone. I would have thought tablet would have been much higher. I know that
it might be the ownership isn't quite as common, so therefore more people are still doing it on smartphone.
It could well be. Could well be. Certainly, what I tend to find is if it's a simple transaction, I will use a tablet.
Yeah.
But if it gets a bit complex, I pull out the laptop and
well, the reason why it's got up to 30% now is people like Tesco doing their own branded versions of that, and the price point is now going down, so more and more people can buy the tablet.
True.
Yeah. So we're going to see more and more of us doing that. I suspect this Christmas will be fantastically popular as a result.
Right. And what we're now going to do is go and have a look, and so that's people who've done it at home. Now what we want to do is see who has bought something using a smartphone or tablet whilst on the move. So if you bought outside of your home...
That doesn't count, by the way, walking down the stairs. That doesn't count as being on the move.
So the answers we have are, and all that apply, on the street,
right,
in a shop, in a car, in a train, plane, boat, or in my case, caravan, or you haven't bought on the move. So this is going to be quite interesting to see. What I'm fascinated to know is how many people have actually bought online in a shop.
James says done most of them. Yeah. What are we talking about here, by the way? Right. Excellent. Well done, James.
So
lots of
services booked via mobile. Hotels, flights. Let's have a look at this now. I think this is going to be fascinating.
So Megan answered, do you find that you do more complex transactions on the laptop? Is that
Certainly
still
I
true?
do.
Yeah.
That's the one
I do.
Mm-hmm. Right, let's have a look at the results. So half have not bought it on the move. 39% have bought in a plane, train, boat or caravan. And if you've filled that one in, it'd be interesting if you could just put in the details of which one of those it was then you've bought on. 19% in a shop. That's interesting. So that is, you were talking about the looking for a better deal.
Yeah.
Maybe being in there and actually getting a better price online.
On the move, 50%. That's an interesting.
Well, the other aspect of that was, and again it came out of one of the workshops one of the webinars that we were doing, is the e-commerce director at Shoe was saying that talking to his customers, the latest expectation they have is before they go in store is to know what stock they're actually holding in that individual store. So that second one in the shop might also be related to actually you weren't holding stock, but I'm still going to buy from you, but I'm going to buy from the online.
Yeah.
So that's the other version of that as well.
Oh, it looks like Caravan has become quite popular. Caravan needed games during
There's a load
the
of
rain.
covert purchasing that happens in caravans. This is what
Paris
we
was
learned
on a
today.
caravan and a boat. A number of people mentioned train. Train for me, shopping kills the travel time.
Do you think it's more dangerous shopping on the street in that kind of a way? Do you think there's more potential
Yeah,
accidents?
security. Oh, accidents. Right.
Do you know? 20%, 30% of people at any one stage. Is that what something? No, it doesn't say that actually. But that's an interesting problem, isn't it?
No. I wonder what people think about the security aspect of that as well, in terms of their digital security in
Well, that's true as well.
environment.
We don't know.
There's still some concern around that area.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that was that one. Oh no, sorry, I just want to go back to one point there. And actually mobile support, this is turning up, and in all seriousness, mobile customer service, relative to the number of us using mobile devices, actually our ability as brands to deliver app-based service is not very strong yet. I can quote the manufacturers and the vendors that are pushing out their sort of beta versions, but very few of us are actually doing it. And actually, if you think about it, we are missing a beat here. So it's good to see one example. This is real-time chat, which NatWest and RBS are focused upon. I read something yesterday, which, by the way, if you want to read it, it's on Dan Miller's Opus Research. It's his post, which he's just written, and there's a platform called My Time. And that's interesting because it allows you to go through any of the channels, and you can see this now. You've got visual IVR as well, which is cool, so you can see the options. But the key thing that they've built in is you can pause the interaction. So if suddenly something else comes up for you, you could be mid-web chat. I think it even applies to a voice call. You, the customer, can control that experience and just put them on pause and come back to it when you're ready. So that's an interesting thing. And he was going, wow, that's really sort of pushing the boundaries. So mobile, from the way that it's being built, is definitely an empowering act from the customer perspective, trickier for us as the brand. But I'm sure when those things get deployed, it's going to become incredibly popular. Actually, anybody out there who's used a mobile app, share the experience on that. I'd love to hear that.
Well, we've got a poll lined up.
Okay. Anybody doing that later? Right, okay. So social, very quickly, what's going on here? The key thing is this. Let me give you the overline. It's only up to, at most, about 10% of total service traffic. Can be as low as 2, anything in between. I would personally reckon it might even get up to 30% by the end of this coming year. But at the moment, it's not that large. This thing is from Social Bakers, which does a sort of massive amount of collation over 1 million websites across the world. And what you're seeing there is the difference between the numbers of questions related to service, which is the dark bar, versus the number of answers. And it basically shows our responsiveness over social channels is still not as good as it needs to be. And indeed, if you went back to Q4 of 2011, which is when they first started this poll, it was just 5%. Which is pathetic. Yeah. And we're just a little north, I think, about 50-60%. So the reality is it's still not perfect. There's some Dutch research that I came across during the middle of summer which said 70% of the reasons that we're using social is because traditional has not been effective. So if you combine that stat with this, we're already being round the houses, upset with you, and then you're not always answering. And by the way, the average responsiveness on both Twitter and Facebook is between 5.5 and 6.5 hours. That's a global stat. There's obviously a lot of us better than that. So, there's going to be a train crash here unless we improve those SLAs very quickly. But the 30% increase also shows that it is a very popular channel because it allows us to communicate in the way that we like it to do. And the net result is, yes, guess what? We have now turned customer service into a spectator sport, which basically means the stakes are raised. The consequences of getting it right are profoundly good. Marketeers love us because that's gold dust, that's word of mouth.
Yeah.
Get it wrong and you're in trouble. And we've all got examples, and I'll just quote you one I've got time for today, but this happened relatively recently with British Airways, and they had a passenger who came in from New York, lost his luggage, tried to tweet the BA Twitter service, which unfortunately deemed that it was okay to go to knock off at 5:30, and that wasn't okay from this person's point of view. So what he did was, by a sponsored tweet, for 24 hours, cost him $1,000. He got 76.8 impressions as a result of that, and started off by saying, look at British Airways' state-of-the-art baggage handling system. And that was one of the more polite things that he said during the course of the day. I got a story of EasyJet that got slammed 2 days ago. You couldn't have done better than that. They told him off in queue for complaining over Twitter, and he happened to be a law professor writing a paper right now on social media and free speech. It couldn't have been better designed had you tried it. So the issue of consumer activism is actually a trending one, started by Dave Carroll, and the point is you can't anticipate where they're going to come from.
No, and that, I mean, I think you're right. I think this is something that scares businesses to some extent. But we also know, we did some research earlier on this year around what happens as a result of bad customer service. 95% of people will do something around bad customer service. 55% of those people will actually just leave you. They won't come back to you, your business or your service, and they won't tell you why. They just can't be bothered. It's too much hard work telling you what you did wrong.
Yes.
And so they'll just go and do it for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's a real problem because, 55% is a big number.
So you add that with the showrooming phenomena, and you're having to work extremely hard now on customer retention.
Absolutely. Which is why this whole spiral, this whole positive customer service spiral is so important. Because acquiring customers is more difficult, losing them is easier. So you've really got to work very, very hard to make sure you keep customers.
To ruin one of my punchlines, I think we're getting very close to the point where it's easier to do it well. At the end of the day, the motivation is to be excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to have a look at consumer activism now, and which is, have you ever complained about a company on social media? So select all that apply. So have you complained on Twitter? Have you complained on Facebook?
Yes.
Have you complained on TripAdvisor?
Yes.
On a website? Or
You're a widget, Tim, aren't you?
Or not on social media.
Yeah.
So if you just like to what I love on complaining on Twitter is you feel so much better when you press the submit button.
Don't
Sort of consumer revenge. But I think
it is
right,
quite interesting. I've complained quite a bit on Twitter, and the results are very varied. I mean, to the extent of some you never get nothing.
Yeah.
And some are instantaneous. They're on it straight away. It's really quite impressive.
I heard one last night. A friend of mine actually. He said, and I won't mention the brand, but it's a mobile provider, and apparently they're so busy at the moment now they just cut you off. They won't let you queue. And he was incandescent. He said at the end, he said, Martin Hill Wilson wouldn't approve it. So we had a banter again. That was what they didn't come back to him, interestingly.
So it looks like about 60% of people have complained on social media. Most popular, Facebook, Twitter, then TripAdvisor, and actually least of them all is on a public website or blog.
Yeah.
So I guess it's the ease of which you can get the...
Well, that, by the way, also says another interesting thing, just to dip into social for a second. It means you cannot assume that you've just got to watch Twitter and Facebook. Yeah, you really do need to use the platform, the listening platform, to find out where customers are talking to you.
Yeah.
And this says actually it could be anywhere.
And I guess on the Facebook, it's not necessarily, they're not necessarily complaining to you. They could be complaining to their friends, which you may not have visibility of.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. So one of the interesting things, can everyone see that again? No, sorry. There we go. There we go. Does that come through, Jonty?
Hopefully it will be
in a second.
Yes, there we are.
Okay, so one of the things I think to basically say as a key conclusion about social is that the size of the upside and the downside is magnified in terms of consequences. And it actually seems to be represented within the behavior of us as well, if we're social. So if you just scan down the service topics there, which basically says, in terms of your propensity to spend and your propensity to communicate about good and bad in both situations, people who have engaged socially are just basically twice as much, at the very least, likely to amplify that communication. And this is a good piece of evidence. It actually comes from the Amex Global, which they did last year. And there's many indications that this is typical behavior now. So we are literally dealing with supercharged behavior here. Get it right and you benefit, get it wrong and you suffer from. And that makes it just much more interesting in terms of the game of roulette here.
And it's lovely to see, though, that as many people telling people are good service now.
Oh yeah, oh no.
Bad, and that's very different
Yeah.
from the past.
It is, it is, it is. There's a propensity to communicate regardless. And the other interesting thing, by the way, for those of you that wonder if voice is ever going to survive the future, it is moving from analog into digital. And one of the interesting ways in which it's doing that is it's beginning now to become available in quite peculiar ways. So here's just one little, for example, whereby you could receive a tweet from somebody and you could then connect via that Twitter handle straight into the call center team, and the whole thing is experienced via social. So you put that back into the mobile context we talked about, and suddenly voice becomes actually very much more immediate than it has been. We've lost the queue, we've lost all the IVR experience that makes us hate it, and we get back to what voice is so terrific about, which is actually it's the fastest, easiest, richest form of communication that's got available.
So is there a device called a telephone?
No, that's a brand. The technology, Jonty, is called WebRTC, and the big the big deal is this: there's no plug-in like Skype.
And that's the next big thing that's going to really impact this. WebRTC is just around the corner, so you're going to start to see that built into a lot of the ways people are communicating. And as Martin says, there's no plug-in. It's straight into the browser. So
that means you can be browsing and you just say press like
call,
so you connect it straight through.
Connect straight through. Could be video as well.
It's actually UC. It's video, voice, and presence straight out of a tab.
Oh. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No,
Awesome.
very cool.
Awesome.
And not that far away.
No.
12 months, 2 years, 3
well, now-ish.
Yeah,
People are experimenting.
There's experiments going on now.
It's got to standardise and scale.
Yeah, I would say that people will start to see this, in live environments within 12 months.
Ah, okay. Be interesting if anyone in the audience is experimenting with telephone or WebRTC. If you can put the details into.
There's huge anybody geeky enough to be interested in that. There's huge discussions over at nodejitter.com, all right, where they're getting really excited about the technology around it.
Yeah.
All right, so there's all that stuff there. Now let's take another thing, digital, and I suppose all of this is powered by digital, but what we're saying is really what the impact of marketing's mindset has been on what we're up to. And we put out this idea at the, sort of somewhere during the middle of the year, and I think this is even more true now, which is that in fact the digital marketeers have been pursuing personalisation very, very strongly, and actually all of us are very used to it now. And the question says, look, if we're being conditioned to expect this real time, why therefore can't we have that in these other more traditional forms of interaction, such as contact centres? And here is the evidence for it. So, bit of statistics to begin with. 78% said, yes, I would be much more likely to respond and purchase from a retailer if they provided me with targeted offers that match my interests, wants and needs. Now, that's not new, I suppose. For years we've received irrelevant communication. We have zero tolerance for that, and we want something that matters to us. And by the way, you collect so much damn data from us, can you not target that? So,
well, hence, back to the big data, discussion.
You're quite right. You're just ahead of the curve as usual, Tim. You see? So what we are starting to see now, though, is marketing systems that in fact can be incredibly smart. And this particular one here I like a lot, because it's combining not just the stuff you would normally see within CRM, which is what I've bought from you and what I've interacted with you, but external data. And in this particular example, it's to do with actually something relevant called the weather conditions where that individual customer lives. And the net result of that particular capability is you can then send an offer to that person just now in which the website has suddenly been dynamically personalised to that individual. So that particular offer for Canada's Ski Now at $499 did not exist a minute ago and is there purely as a result of that individual, what they bought before, and the fact that snow is forecasted so there's an urgency in the context and in situ of that individual's need. Perfect real-time personalisation. Here's another one, closer to home as far as the UK audience is concerned, and this comes from M&S. And it's a very, very neat little system which allows us to be able to try on virtually the makeup range. You can use either one of the selected models, which is fantastic, that's very nice, or if you want, you can upload yourself as an avatar and play to your heart's content. Again, personalised self-help, which is an interesting option. I've done a wee piece of work with these guys, and I know what they're in the process of building, and travel is going through are really, really revolutionary. You know, omni-channel is retail, very close behind that is travel. And what we're looking at is an experience of always being connected before the holiday, during the holiday, and after the holiday. And these folk here could literally, off the beach, be demanding personalised service, you know, etc. Even down to sweeties, yeah? Even us, mere mortals, can now make sure that our M&Ms are you know, personalised in a way that we find fun. So you can now eat your face, as they say, which is a bit of fun. So add all that stuff together. What we're saying is that actually the world around us increasingly gives us personalised experiences. Does that impact on our expectations for customer service? Absolutely is the answer. And these headlines I just literally Googled and gathered, and the word we seem to be using a lot in our industry is proactive. Yeah, this is the word that seems to signify us trying to get onto the front foot rather than waiting for the customer.
Well, because that's really one of the key things to provide distinctive service, is that ability to personalise it. And one of the, I guess, one of the downsides of what we've done in contact centres is we've kind of depersonalised it by putting it into queues.
Yeah.
You get to speak to anyone, you don't get to speak to the same person again.
Yeah.
And we don't use the information from the CRM in the process of that range.
Well, this is something that we talk a lot about at NewVoiceMedia, and it's something that we that our customers use in incredibly interesting ways. So being able to recognise the inbound call, recognise the customer, go to a central point of information, the CRM system, and say, okay, so what do we know about this customer? And that could be lots of different things. It could be how important are they to us? Where are they in the buying cycle? It could be, did they have a bad customer experience? There we go. Last time that we interacted. So, you know, lots and lots of different ways that you can manage that customer's call based on your interactions with that individual in the past, based on situational analysis. What do you know about them now? And you know, forget the IVRs and the queuing systems. Actually make real-time decisions about how do you handle that call, and let them know you know. You know, we're routing your call because we know this about you.
And that technique is based on using what their calling line identity, the phone number they called in.
Well, it could be. So there's numbers of ways that we can verify and identify and verify who's calling in. We've talked about smartphones a lot. You know, people call 60% of the time using smartphones. So, and also the trend now is not to hide your inbound number. Because I don't know about you, but you know, my experimentation of one is if I have a blocked number on the inbound, I won't take the call because I don't know who it is.
So whereas in the old days, what held a lot of this back was if you were calling, say, from work, that could apply to 2,000 people. Yes. Now you're calling from your mobile phone, goes directly to you.
So CTI has changed. Yeah.
Well, the other thing, I mean, if you that is true, but if you're calling into a call center in a business and you're calling from Germany, we can route that call automatically to the German speaking agents. Or, you know, and obviously, you know, you can make routing decisions based on lots of different criteria. Not just the inbound number. The other thing, of course, is you can prompt for information, so customer number or open case. And route based on that, but intelligently route based on that. So, you know, in an open case scenario, do you want to talk to the person that you last talked to? Because it's a complex environment and you don't want to have to re-explain everything. No. So all of those things make a very different approach to that whole queuing IVR.
Are you finding many people doing this? I know it's sort of
absolutely
a growing trend.
No, absolutely. Our customers using it in really innovative ways because they can effectively route on any field in their CRM. So it could be on your social media prevalence, for example. So if you're very hot in social media and you want to give a great customer service to this individual, then we could identify that.
So it'd be interesting to ask the audience, actually, if you are doing any personalisation based on the number that people are calling in from or any other personalisation of service.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you'd like to type that into the
it's actually just to qualify that. I think we've done that through individuals so far. You know, really good interaction. What we're discussing here, though, is scalable personalisation. You know, at the level of the infrastructure, the core capability. So it's to use any particular indicator. Yeah. Oh, by the way, so let's move on. This is new. This just happened last week. So the context here is digital that we're talking. And how close can you get to the customer for an experience? And this has really caused some waves. Amazon, as you might imagine, Jeff Bezos. Very cool, very cool. So he's just launched his latest generation of Kindles, okay? And what he's decided to do on the very front page is plonk that. And that is the ability to hit a Mayday button, and behind that Mayday button is a live video-based agent.
So that's a webcam link to the agent.
You got it. You got it. Now, that is 24/7 with nothing to stop you using it wherever, whenever. Now, if you think how clever Amazon are and parsimonious they are about their use of service, he has put himself right into the center of the debate by offering this with no qualification at this point at all. Yeah? They can now, with permission, like with co-collaboration that we've seen before, indicate on the screen, where you need to navigate and stuff. And the reason he's done that is to make sure that there is no impediment between you using that device to its fullest degree. Because it's no secret that the Kindle is sold at, at flat price. Where they make their money is in the usage of it. So he has put help right into the center of the proposition to drive that.
And that's presumably sort of one-way video. You get to see the agent, agent can't necessarily see
No, they
you,
can't.
so.
They cannot see you. They cannot see you at all.
Cool.
But they can do. So that's, again, a whole new thing now, 24/7 home screen assistance, bang bosh.
Wow. How many years has video been on the future of the contact centre? I think
and
7 years ago we wrote about it, and it still hadn't...
And that was literally launched last week, so that was just amazing. That was just amazing. So moving through there, the thing that's really driven that has been the personalisation.
And we've got lots of people in the audience who are doing personalisation.
What have we got?
Johnny says, yes, we're doing for language and product specialists. Dorian has said they use technology to help with personalisation. Vicky says we do that internally. And we've also got some other...
the hotels, Gemma there, a lot of work around seriously increased personalisation of service happening in our industry, hotels. Absolutely. Quite a few of our customers are in, and also concierge. An enormous amount of interest from that area as well.
Concierge, because that really is a sort of...
Well, that is by definition.
Absolutely.
By definition. So a lot of that, I mean, that's interesting. In our traditional, almost sort of mama pie version of this is the individual being nice to another individual. The corner shop person remembers who you are, they are the database and all that story. However,
sorry. So Dave's saying personalisation by customer value, which is we have customers doing that. I can't name names unfortunately, but we have people who do that based on are they a very important person and are they a very important customer? In other words, do they spend $500,000 with us or upwards of that?
I mean, I think what you do with a customer, it can be driven by customer value, but I think that eventually we're going to have to consider all the customer base
as valuable.
Of
course. No, I get it.
Therefore, treatment on that.
No, absolutely. And that's the scalability of this whole approach, which is so important in the long term.
So the thing that allows us to scale is really this big data conversation. And I just wanted to share one off the thing with another customer that I work with a lot, which is in the analytics side of the business. And it's interesting, this conversation. So in big commoditized businesses, they're always trying to do better churn management. No big deal. Predictive modeling, no big deal. They typically use things like demographic data, transactional data. Now, what happens though if, in big data terms, you can then grab all the interaction stuff that we see flowing through our customer services? That's interesting, and you mash that up with the transaction and the demographic. And there are two situations which have just gone down in the last couple of months with some very, very, very big US brands, and they discovered a common thing. In both instances where this has been done, there's been a 30% uplift in the accuracy of the customer churn model. That's huge and hugely significant, because it means that where you then have limited outbound, outreach capability, you can target and use that much more successfully. So here is a really powerful example of how big data, when correctly applied, particularly using stuff that we find in our contacts, contact interactions, that can directly impact our ability to manage customers. And then, I just shoved this in here, but at the end of the day, we as customers are saying, know me. And it's not just be nice to me, but actually the statement I like about this is, I am distinctly individual. That's what I'm about in my life, so how are you going to manage to recognize that for me? And then a lot of this also is fundamentally enabled because the cloud exists. And what's interesting is, let's just put this into context again, it's multi-channel, multi-device that we're living in. And that picture at the bottom of omni-channel behavior, all of us do that to a greater or lesser degree. We will move across 3 or 4 channels before we buy and as we relate with you. If you want to look at it in this term, this is a McKinsey-originated description of actually onboarding as it happens, and look at the complexity of that that's taking place. Again, the call center, this is very, very important by the way, in contact center terms, we are no longer a silo. We cannot be a silo any longer. We belong in a very intricate customer journey, and by the way, it implies our level of collaboration with our colleagues and other functional areas has to be much better than it is. The reality though is this. All right, we're still siloed, and this is where cloud comes in. Cloud provides digital glue in a way that has not been possible before, and allows you to expedite a customer journey in terms of workflow, data, and comms in a way that was never true before, and it gives us the ability to scale, adapt, reuse stuff. It's like Lego blocks, if you want, in a way that's really quite dynamic. So that's one of the core enablers of cloud. In any particular context, which then brings us through to this final thing that we just want to say and peer into the future and said, take all that together, what do we see in the future? Well, first big idea is this. We don't believe that customer service will remain as a separate silo. We think that it will have become part of a much tighter relationship between sales and marketing. For the sake of discussion, there is one department left called the customer department. And for the sake of discussion, the ambition is customer engagement, which includes sales, service, and marketing. And the reason we've got social in there is that that preeminently is one that respects no silos. So it's part of customer life cycle.
So do you see marketing and customer service being merged into one department? I've heard talk about that. Marketing are going to take over customer service.
I'm extrapolating 7 years out. Already today, the relationships that social have caused between marketing and service is absolutely tight. Yeah, an increasing amount of stuff. Yeah. Go back to what we said earlier. Marketeers have the problem that nobody's interested in their messaging. Yeah. Yeah. So as soon as they get excited, let me give you a good example. If you do great stuff on social, right? Marketing should be sitting next to the service people and say, that's a great thing we've just done for that individual, or we've finally fixed that story. Let's now find the backstory. Let's work it up into a campaign. Yeah. And rather than having a stupid, average picture that we have on Facebook, which is irrelevant and provocative to customers, yeah, have a campaign on how we've fixed the service to make it work better for you. Yeah. So there's tons of opportunity for people to be working closer together at the end of the day. So one of the images 7 years out is that we're much, much tighter in terms of our collaboration and the budgeting process. The next thing is that we have changed the people who are in our space, and that the upgraded talent that we're looking at is upgraded, A, because self-service has definitely grown, is smarter, more intelligent. That suits our psyche as self-empowered customers. We are anyway actually beyond Generation Y, we're probably Generation C, they're calling it now. And we will not stand the typical command and control that has been typical of call centers. We're social, which means that the impact of our communication has really got consequences. And of course, customer experience is the absolute, writing through the stick of the rock. So it implies that we will have an upgraded talent within that. It will be professionalized. We can already see examples of professionalization going on in our space as well. And then the last thing is, what we're doing in customer services will have a profound impact on the rest of the organization, and we will become analytical, we will become more capable of using that data. The net result is we can push out that value to all the other parts of the organization, and we can be using customer service as a place from which we can learn, improve, and also create and innovate. And those are 3 ideas we've got for the way that customer service could be looking in 7 years. So that's the end of what we want to talk about. Jonty, do you want to ride us home, as they say, for the last period, and get everybody else?
So thank you very much for that. We're just going to go on to now, it's your turn to provide your top tips to provide a distinctive customer service. There's a bottle of champagne up for the winning tip. Please use hashtag #tip at the start of your tip, so we know it's a tip and not a question. And quite interesting, coming back to our comment about marketing and customer service, Sophia says we work very much together and across departments in the company I work for almost all the time. It's brilliant. And Teresa said, I agree, marketing should be in constant communication with frontline staff on whatever media or priority level. Also on the chat room, callcenterhelper.com/chat, there's also a very active discussion about personalisation and quite interesting one going on about how many customers you give priority service to. So some quite interesting percentages on that, so it looks very interesting. So let's have a look at the first couple of tips that have come through. I think the first one's to do with speed. React fast on customer queries, says Helena. Complaint or comments, do not wait, because time is important when things run fast. Consequences of waiting can get out of proportion. And I think you mentioned about how some companies are really onto it very quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But they're also empowered to resolve the situation as well.
Yeah.
And that's really important, because it's no good giving platitudes. People want resolution.
Yeah. So maybe the difference, as we looked at the mood earlier, of the ones that harassed are possibly the ones that have least empowerment.
Yeah, quite possibly.
Richard says, at our company we ensure all questions or complaints are assigned a fixed handler. So the client always speaks to and deals with the same person. And I'm guessing from a personalisation perspective, you can link that in to the CLI. So if that person's available, you could say, what do you do?
Well, you can message
saying, would you like to speak to the same person?
Yes, exactly that. You say, would you like to speak to Richard, who was dealing with your call, or talk to the first available person, because they may be in a queue.
Okay. Also dealing with speed, Vicky says, if you can't make it 24-hour, cover social media, make it clear in the description. Some businesses can't do that. I certainly think the more social media is out there, the more the demands for at least a core team of people being able to cover out of hours coverage. Johnny says, tip, link PR departments closely to customer service departments.
Indeed.
Ensure you give customer services that differentiates you from the market, is aligned with the business's core values, look and feel. Our customer service department feel like our brand, terminology, tone, behaviours aligned throughout the organisation. The way we talk on the phone socially, things like live chat, is important as the text in the next ad. So certainly, I think one of the things from a distinctive service perspective is that alignment.
So my point is, already early indications of this coming togetherness goes 7 years down the line, be very much tighter.
Carry out customer satisfaction surveys to ensure you're doing the best for your customers. Ensure you include the Net Promoter Score, which will act as a benchmark as how you're scoring in comparison to the market and your competitors. That's
true. The other thing that we've seen is that if somebody gives a poor score on a post-call survey, that's picked up the next time they call in. So we recognise that we didn't perform particularly well last time you called. We're going to do something different this time.
Indeed. And there's even some companies now saying if it's a poor score, call them back and
immediately
see if there's anything you can do to sort it out. In terms of people, catch them doing it right and broadcast the scenario in team briefs for others to share and comment.
That is so important. I mean, the work that we're doing on performance and quality, that whole campaign at the moment, that's the essence of what a lot of people are talking about on the empowerment side. Don't penalise and go, no, find the stuff that really works and encourage people to go even further. And that's the way in which you build a winning culture.
And here's a tip for you. Get the number of calls waiting off your wallboards and get positive customer feedback stories up onto those wallboards. You could do that by close of play tonight.
That's a good one.
And I think that's my tip of the day.
You're not allowed to win, though.
No, he's not. He snuck in his candidates for the campaign there.
We said that so much champagne. James says, use a platform that allows you to see other users' clout score to see their influences, not always the follow count.
Counts. That is true.
Clout scores, there's a number, isn't it? Peer
index, there's clout, but clout has been baked into. They've white-labelled more successfully, so you're more likely to see clout turn up. The only thing I'd say against that, James, is that Dave Carroll, for example, was not known until he did his video, and that fella from the BA was also not known until he did his thing. So I think it's a useful indicator of potential danger. However, the fact is any of those customers could turn against you. So you've got to be careful how you use that information.
I must have been less keen on the clout score since Martin got a higher clout score.
I'm very happy with that. I've got a bit of clear blue water now.
Terry says, don't be afraid to talk to the customer on the phone. Sometimes they just want to hear a friendly voice and feel that their customer is valued.
Yeah.
Certainly,
Yeah.
social media in, phone call out,
Yeah.
I think is a
Yeah,
That's
a
good.
good tip. That's a good tip.
is a good one.
Yeah.
Anne says, as a customer myself, I often use social media to get what I want. It makes businesses take notice and reply in the public forum when they get it wrong.
Yeah.
And everyone can see how they've handled a
Quite so.
problem.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I've started, when I'm doing a new purchase, as well as looking for price, I start looking at what's being said about them on Twitter.
Yeah.
I bought some video software recently, and one company had all sorts of problems. Didn't buy that one. Another one said, "Oh, look what I've just created."
Yeah.
That's the one I bought. So
Yes.
starting to change around. There's a note on the bottom that we're doing an article on this one this week. Don't be afraid to talk to the customer on the phone. Oh, very good. So I should have given that a plug. That's Rachel there prompting me. Don't doubt how far empathy and bonding with the customer can take you. Your customer is calling you or web chatting you for a reason, and don't forget that. Let's go down the list and take a couple more.
Wow, we've got a fantastic amount.
From the bottom.
Well done, everybody, by the way. It's highly productive.
Data taken from customer services fed back for root cause analysis to prevent situations recurring.
I like that.
And fed into sales and development teams.
I like that. I'm going to vote for that.
I think that's a good one. Is that the one that's trending so far? Or?
It is now.
We'll have a look.
It's transformative.
Consistency through planned and proper training, quality monitoring throughout the day for each individual, and full feedback to the advisors. That's, I guess, closing the loop.
Yes.
To, who's on the phone. If you're not using an omni-channel platform, I guess that's a multi-channel platform, get your business on one sooner rather than later, and ensure social medias, including a client score. Jim seems very keen on the client scores. Let's take a couple more. Try and collect customer handles across channels. Try and collect customer handles across channels proactively. What's a customer handle?
We're talking about Twitter handle, are we?
Okay.
How they identify themselves across channels. That's really key actually, because that will help you to tie together channels as well, so that you can identify customers as they move across channels.
And actually, Social Sprout yesterday launched a service which enables you to take the email of a customer and identify from that what their Twitter handle is.
Is that right?
Yeah,
that's cool.
I guess that's it's hard work doing that stuff.
Also used for encouraging customers to use preferred channel and educate. I think the final word today, don't just meet the expectation, exceed when and where you can, by Brian up north. So
Thank you, Brian. Fantastic.
Is there a Brian down south then on the
presumably.
on the webinar? So we're going to go across. That's all we've got time for this week.